19,000. The run-up comes ahead of Crypto Week in Washington, where Congress is set to consider key legislation for the industry. Our next guest says the cryptocurrency could march to $1 million. Will Reeves is the CEO of Fold, a Bitcoin financial services platform, and he joins us now. I mean, Will, I'd love to sort of get your take on why we're seeing Bitcoin move higher. I know it doesn't always trade on fundamentals, but is anything that's happening in Washington potentially influencing the price of Bitcoin this week?
You know, I think this is just inevitable. This is what happens when massive demand meets the finite supply of Bitcoin. And what we're seeing right now is the supply shock in motion. So I'd certainly say what we are seeing is the fundamentals of Bitcoin in play.
And so you think that it will begin to start to move more on fundamentals and potentially even more so once it gets these sort of stamps of, hey, this is good stuff from Washington?
I think the stamps of approval have always been good. It enables new capital allocators to start to invest. And what we've seen recently with the rise of Bitcoin treasury companies, the ETFs, is that entirely new classes of capital are able to invest in the asset. And what we're seeing is what happens when trillions of dollars start knocking on the door, the price tends to go up. And so the fundamentals have always been there. Investors have been waiting for their ability to get involved.
What would it take for some of the other coins, altcoins, to kind of get the vote of approval or stamp of approval, if you will, in terms of Bitcoins? Because, I mean, if you think back to meme coins, the Doges, the early stages of Bitcoin, it was really the early adopters that really kind of formed that cohort that pushed it higher. What will it take for us to see that transition into some of the other coins that are still branded as more speculative?
You know, frankly, I think they're going to remain speculative. Bitcoin dominance is at 60% and rising. I think what we're seeing is an inevitable trend towards the signal, the apex asset. The issue is that Bitcoin is the only credibly neutral digital asset that is in issuance. All the other tokens are still proving an extraordinarily speculative use case without the track record of Bitcoin. And so what we are seeing today is the continued march of Bitcoin dominating this entire market. And I am waiting for the day when that changes, but ultimately what we've seen is something that can't be reversed.
Happy Bitcoin Monday, freaks. We got another Citadel Dispatch, the interactive live show focused on actual Bitcoin and freedom tech discussion. Looks like Zapstream is still under DDoS right now. I'm going to keep an eye on that for us. But until then, I'm going to remove that from our stream. Let's see what we got going here. Live producing going. We'll be streaming in the Twitch comments, the YouTube comments, and the X comments until Zapstream comes back online. Anyway, Citadel Dispatch, the interactive live show focused on actionable Bitcoin and freedom tech discussion. We have another all-time high Bitcoin rip going on. Bitcoin, maybe last night or yesterday, I guess right before I fell asleep, past 120K. Kieran from Zapstream said he just ordered a new router to deal with his DDoS. We have Matt Ahlborg here from PPQ, Payperq.ai. How's it going, Matt?
Hey, it's going well. Yeah, it's a pretty good day when Bitcoin's at an all-time high to do a podcast. So
hopefully this is the rest of the summer. It's just constant all-time high rips. I'm here for it. So where should we get started? I mean, I think. Sorry, I'm reading troubleshooting. Your product's awesome. Let's do a quick to the freaks that don't know what ppq.ai is. What is it? Why does it exist? Why should people care?
Yeah, so PPQ It's a website where you can get access to all of the latest and greatest AI models and tools in one place. And it's without subscription. It's on a pay-per-use basis. And it accepts many cryptos, but we do have kind of a Bitcoin first preference, 5% bonus for all Lightning deposits in particular. But the basic idea is that you can come to our website, you can deposit as little as 10 cents worth of Bitcoin. You can try the product out. You're not committing to a monthly or annual subscription or anything like that. And what we've seen in the last year is that there is not one AI company that's releasing all of the best models.
Right.
There are half a dozen awesome companies releasing really awesome stuff, and so it really pushes forward the idea that like the better interfaces with AI, it's those that are plugged into all of the top company models.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's a bunch of things to unpack here, but trying to stay on top of the AI curve or the AI acceleration phase, where it just feels like new stuff is dropping every day. You kind of have you're kind of held back by, as an individual that wants to use these tools, you're held back for two reasons. You're held back for one, that you have a bunch of different companies that are iterating and innovating and shipping new stuff all the time. So in practice, you end up needing to have accounts everywhere. And then the second piece is it's very hard to use them with any semblance of privacy whatsoever. They almost all require credit cards as a payment method. And then some of them even do other identity verification. Like they try and make it even more difficult to use privately, let alone just the standard credit card billing stuff. So PPQ is really cool because you basically have all of the top models in one place, and then you can just easily pay with Lightning. That's awesome. And I think it's pretty unique, right? Is there anything else that kind of even competes with you?
Yeah, there are. There's one website in particular that I would consider to be our competitor, Nano GPT. They've done basically the same thing that we've done, except they love the cryptocurrency Nano.
I forgot that shitcoin existed.
Yeah. But aside from their misguided shitcoining, they've done a great job executing. And so we are trying to answer in kind, and we recently acquired a $500,000 investment from a couple of the popular Bitcoin VCs. And so we're scaling up now on the engineering side, so that way we can really ship a lot of great stuff in the coming months. Yeah.
So let's So I mean, if you look on your website, I mean, you can see what different models you offer. But you have the OpenAI models there, you have the Anthropic models, you have XAI with Grok, you have the Google Gemini stuff, Mistral, Perplexity, Meta. How hard is it to actually integrate with their APIs? Like, do they make that difficult for you? Like, what is that process like to actually?
It is, I would say, medium difficulty. We, in many cases, with the top models, we like to directly integrate with the provider. So we're getting our OpenAI models directly from OpenAI. We're getting our Anthropic directly from Anthropic. But with a lot of the kind of second tier models and such, like it would be a lot of overhead to set up direct integrations with all of these dozens of AI companies. So then we plug into like an aggregator that there are a bunch of companies coming up that are specializing in like providing all these models in one place, which is kind of similar to what we do as well. So, but I think our focus is that we want to make our platform really user-friendly, where a lot of these kind of other aggregators, they're more developer-facing or even enterprise-facing, whereas we're kind of trying to get to the AI-curious newbies or maybe crypto-native person who's a little bit technologically minded, but maybe is learning AI for the first time. that's the kind of users that we are capturing. Yeah.
You're like more of the consumer focused front end, while they're kind of offering like more of a B2B type of service.
Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And with Grok, is that like a direct API call? Like they just open up an API for you? I assume you have to pay for it, but.
Yeah, so Grok is a tricky one. You can get a direct API access with XAI. However, we're getting our Grok from one of the aggregators. When they released Grok 4 like a week ago, they kind of released it to a limited pool of companies. And so for that reason, we're not getting it directly. But we do have an XAI account. And when they make it available directly, we will probably plug in that way.
And then what about like the open source models? Are you self-hosting are you hosting open source models, or are you you're purely an API front end effectively?
Yeah, we're basically purely an API front end. Self-hosting models is actually a lot of work, and it's a lot of resources as well. Even like Open Secret or Maple AI, those guys, which I really like them, love what they're doing, and I've had several conversations with them. But the model that they're self-hosting it's still not the fully beefed up version of DeepSeek or whatever open source model, because those literally
they have Llama and DeepSeek right now as their two supported models.
Yes, but those particular instances of those models, they're not the beefed up version of the model. They're kind of like the middle of the road model. And so because it costs a lot of money to host one of those, the beefed up versions, like I think on the order of $10,000, $20,000 a month, something like that. So you need a lot of demand to really justify hosting the fully beefed up open source version. And it's a lot of engineering to put it into place and make sure that it's all like load balanced correctly and all that stuff. So we've avoided that stuff. Another reason I would say is it's a lot of work, but another reason is the demand is not there for a lot of the open source ones yet. They don't have the name brand recognition. There's still, when DeepSeek came out a few months back, everybody thought like, oh my goodness, it's like, it's just as good as OpenAI and Anthropic. And then like as time passed, people figured out that no, this model is not as good as the brand name models yet. And there's still a lot of work to make up. And as an end user of AI, like if I'm a developer every day, I would say a core user that we have is developers using our API. If I want to do my job in the best way possible, I would rather use the absolute best model. There's no reason for me to use a model that's like 90% as good as something that I, it's just not worth my time. Right. So the open source models are not there yet. There's a really exciting one that was released a few days ago. It's called Kimi from Moonshot AI.
It's like another Chinese open source model, right?
Yes. Yeah. And it's getting a lot of buzz, and we're adding that one either tonight or tomorrow morning. So we'll see. It seems to have good reviews, but really, truly, the test of time is really important for a lot of these models, because it's very easy to get your new model to pass all of the benchmarks to kind of game it to do really well on benchmark testing. But then when it actually comes to like actual usage, it's a different story a lot of the time. So.
Right. I mean, the way I kind of think about it is like the open source models are usable right now for kind of like the average person chat interface type of scenario where you're asking for like populations of different countries and different stuff like that. But if you want to do like really strong tasks, hard, aggressive tasks, whether that's, generative art or vibe coding or something like that, there's a real big gap between the proprietary models and the open source ones. Would you agree on that?
Totally. Yeah. And but that was not always the case. Like even a year ago, when we jumped from GPT 3.5 to GPT 4 Turbo, like GPT 4 Turbo, I believe, was like the first model that really started doing well at answering those everyday questions like population of whatever country. Like 3.5 did the job, but 4 Turbo really like was the first model that did well at all that, even the basic everyday questions. And so I think we are already at the point where like the basic everyday questions are free now. And we've already moved past that. And now the expensive models are the ones that can do a lot of the fancy stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. So, I mean, as an end user, like obviously, I mean, maybe I'm not the average end user, but I personally have, long-term concerns about the viability of open source models versus proprietary models. Like, I don't want us to go down a dystopian hole of proprietary data surveillance heavy models. I mean, I think it puts a lot of disadvantages to the individual. It gives a lot of advantage to the corporations, to the governments that they collude with or get pressured by. But from just an actual individual everyday point of view, the biggest issue is on the privacy side. So for right now, like the way you have PPQ AI set up, what is that trust model? Does that look like is that like a VPN trust model? Like, are you basically sitting in between me and my prompts versus with the AI model on the other side? Like, how does that look? How should a user think about the privacy model of your product?
Yeah. So with PPQ, when a user comes and they enter in a question and then they hit the enter key, that query, along with the content of that query, goes to our backend, and you have to trust that we are not logging the content of your query on the backend. And in our terms of service, we are telling our users that like we only log metadata, like how many tokens the question was, how much it cost, all that stuff, and we're not logging the content, but we're not proving that. But what happens after it hits our back end is we send it on to the AI provider, and then the AI provider returns the answer. The answer also goes through our back end, including the content, and we're promising that we're not logging it, and we're sending it back to the front end. That's the model right now, so you do have to trust us that we're not logging this stuff. I do think there is potential for like an architecture that could improve that, where we could make better guarantees for our users. But honestly, like I did my best to get this product up and running as fast as possible. And I think that's like a very classic trade-off between like a lot of what Bitcoiners want is like they always want you to go absolutely perfectly in the direction of privacy. And if you're not all the way there, then you suck. So I think that's actually one of my things that I'm good at is I'm good at being practical and just shipping stuff that works. And I do very much appreciate privacy, and I want to build that in a lot better over time. But that's where we're at right now. I want to give people something that works.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like a perfect is the enemy of good classic example. And so it's basically the VPN trust model, more or less.
Yeah.
You trust Mulvad or Proton not to log.
Yeah.
It's a trusted relationship. But what about presumably if I'm doing a bunch of follow-on prompts, the AI provider knows that's all from the same person, I assume, right?
I don't think so. So to the AI provider, we are one customer to them. So
Okay.
all of the queries from all of our users are being bundled into one, now with certain data analysis and stuff, they theoretically could probably figure out like, okay, these queries here are associated with
They're very similar. Right.
Yeah. So they could do that, but I don't know.
But they're not getting like user X or
No.
user Y or user
They're
ID
getting
codes.
user PPQ is what they're
Right.
seeing. Yeah.
And so especially if it's two different tasks that I'm doing. If I like vibe code an app and then I go and just generate photos or something in a new chat window on PPQ, it's a pretty good privacy model there if we trust you
I would say so, yes.
from the
Yes.
AI provider.
Yep.
Okay, that makes sense to me. The other cool aspect is one of the few ways to actually use this stuff on like a pay-per-use basis, which I mean is hence the name Payperq. How do you think about that? Like, are your costs, like, it seems like the industry has more or less standardized, at least for consumer grade stuff, is standardized on like a monthly subscription model, where you just pay and you probably don't use it all, or some power users are just destroying them and using way too much. From an end user point of view, I love the pay per use model because honestly, I'm not a power user. I'm not using it all the time, and I like to know that when I use it, I pay for it, and when I don't, I don't. But how does that work for you? Are your bills usage based, or like how does
Yeah.
that work?
Yeah, my bills are usage based. PPQs are. We're when we
Okay.
plug into an API, we're not on any sort of like AI subscriptions with these companies. But yeah, this is a really, really big question, actually. The subscription model versus pay per use. How did we end up here? I think most people. I have a lot of thoughts on this, but I'm not. It's like not perfectly crystallized in my mind, so I'm probably just going to ramble on here. But with subscriptions, I think that let's see, how do I start this? So most people think that we arrived at these subscription models because like some MBA meeting at all these companies agrees that it's like, oh, we should find a way to charge users for stuff that they don't use. That's a really good business model, right? Like, and then let's make them forget that they have a
Like
subscription.
gym memberships. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that most people believe that that's how we ended up here because it's like a nice way to steal money from your users,
Yeah.
which I think there's some truth to that. But I think if you, I worked at BitRefill for 5 years, and one of my projects there was to kind of research the idea of getting the BitRefill Visa card or MasterCard or whatever. And so I learned a lot about how the credit card companies work and how their fee structures work. And actually, I believe that we've arrived industry-wide, or global payments. We've arrived at subscriptions not because of it's a good way to steal money from users, but because the fees that Visa and MasterCard charge on microtransactions make microtransactions untenable in most cases. And also the fact that Visa and MasterCard have, from their inception, they built in this chargeback mechanism. It makes it so that anytime you do a payment on these networks, there's a risk that it could be disputed and that it would be charged back. And for whatever reason, it means what that amounts to is that small transaction numbers or small volume numbers are not good for, they become more expensive. So when you swipe a card, it's like 30 cents plus a percentage typically. And so what that means is that a larger swipe is better. And that kind of rules out a lot of microtransactions. But with crypto, there is no chargeback risk. Everything is instantly settled. And so we are now back at a place where pay-per-use actually starts to make sense. And when you there's all sorts of justifications for why we should have subscriptions, like from a business point of view, like, stealing money from users. And like, we can also say like, oh, now we have this recurring revenue thing, and that's good for you can tell the shareholders that we have recurring
ARR.
revenue,
Yeah.
all this bullshit. But it's at the end of the day, what is a subscription? You're charging every user the same amount, no matter their usage, and that just economically makes no sense at all. You should be charging users based on their usage. And so I think that we are at the beginning of the end of subscriptions. I think that companies like Payperq are going to start eating away at subscriptions. And the beautiful thing is that you said you're a casual user, right? So the people who make the most money for these subscription providers are now going to come to Payperq because it costs them $2 a month instead of $20 a month, right? And so who's left over in the subscriptions? It's the power.
And I'm also like a casual user that wants the best model, right? Like
Yeah,
I don't use it all the time, but I also I would
but
pay
you want
for
the
the
good one
super
when you
expensive
use
one.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that actually helps us out against the freemium providers. Like you can
Yeah.
use ChatGPT for free, but they don't give you the document upload. They don't let you make images. They give you like a really shitty context window, all that stuff. So yeah, Payperq is a perfect place where you can actually get the high quality version of the model, the state of the art, but you're not paying a subscription. And so yeah, it's great.
Wait, so I kind of cut you off, but what you were saying is you're kind of forcing the hand of the other providers to move to this model because the only ones he'll be left on the subscription model are the ones that they're not making money off of because they're just like
Exactly.
using the hell out of it.
That's exactly where this is going to end up, I
Yeah.
think. And I think AI is kind of the perfect way to really start forcing your hand because like Spotify subscription, I don't think that's going away anytime soon. Netflix subscription, that requires
Right.
like massive licensing fees with all these big media conglomerates and stuff, right? But this AI, I think it's the perfect way to really start eating away at the subscriptions.
I mean, this is the first time that we've seen like, or maybe I'm missing something, but it feels like one of the first times we've seen actual significant, like on the internet, pay-per-use cost, right? Like real
Yeah.
physical cost. Like it has major computational cost every time you send them these prompts.
Yes, and that's kind of what makes it the perfect start to this end of subscriptions. Is that yeah, there are all sorts of use. Some are very casual, some are power users. So the subscription models don't make sense anymore. And you can see that these subscription providers are already kind of like they don't know what to do. Now they have like higher tier subscriptions, and even with like Cursor, if you've ever heard of Cursor, it's like this development tool that a lot of people are using. They have a $20 subscription, then they have a $200 subscription. The $20 subscription, they're already kind of like taking really big behind the scenes shortcuts. I just recently hired my CTO, and he came in, and I'm trying to, he's he's got 15 years of development experience, and this is a little bit of problem with like some of the senior devs is you can't get them into the AI because they already know a lot of it, and like AI is really good for people like me who are not seasoned developers. I learned coding in my late 20s, and I was never really a super full-time person. So it's great for me, but for these senior developers, like they really have to be convinced on the value of AI. Well, I'm trying to convince him, like, you need to start using AI more because like, this is our core user. You need to understand our product, blah, blah, blah. And the first week or two, he's like, I'm doing my best, but what we figured out is that his $20 Cursor subscription was like giving him really shit results. And he was forming his opinion of AI based on the shitty experience that he was having using $20 Cursor.
Right.
And then I was like, oh, that's crazy. Like, try using Klein. Klein is an open source version of Cursor that works on a pay-per-use model. And when it's pay-per-use, you're getting the model that you're paying for. It's giving you the full quality of the model. There's no secret shortcuts behind the scenes. What we think's going on with Cursor is they're like, to save money, they're giving you lesser models at certain times, and they're shrinking the context window, so it's not reading all of your files.
It's like throttling.
It's throttling you, yes.
Yeah.
And so when he switched over to Klein on pay-per-use, he's like, holy shit, this thing is doing so much better than Cursor. And so you can already see there are really a lot of serious cracks forming in these subscription models.
So with your business model specifically, are you just charging like a flat rate margin on top of every usage?
That's what we're doing. I would like to transition to kind of like a logarithmic pricing where like if you're a casual user, we're going to charge you a higher margin. But if you use us a bunch over a 30-day window, your margin's going to lower.
Like a Bitcoin exchange.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
Yeah.
Same thing. So I would like to implement that. That way we win both types of users. But right now it's just a fixed fee on top of that.
But that's pretty cool. I mean, you're just profitable and sustainable from the get-go.
Yeah, exactly. And it's simple. That's the other thing with subscriptions. I told you, don't get me started on subscriptions. Every single AI website on the internet right now, it has the same onboarding flow. You go to their website, they give you this watered down, narrow version of what they actually offer, or maybe they'll give you a 7-day trial or whatever. And then they try to get you on that subscription, right? So there's so much design thought that goes into converting a user to become a subscriber, right? Because that's a
Right.
big commitment, right? To get somebody $20 subscription, that's $240 a year. So to get a user to cross that, you have to design things so well to get them to sign up for the subscription. On PPQ, like we don't have to think about that stuff at all. You come,
Right.
you make a deposit, we charge you whatever the price is, and boom, you like it, good. If you don't like it, then you didn't lose anything. You're not committed, you know?
Is your margin is like the fee you charge on top public or?
It's not, but I mean, we charge 40% on the UI,
Okay.
and it still adds up to like, you're doing advanced queries and it's 2 pennies per query type thing.
Yeah. It still feels pretty cheap,
It's very cheap.
especially if you're not if you're not like an
median
insane
user-
user. Yeah.
Our median user is spending like $1.50 a month. But on our API, we have a much lower margin because the API users are using us like a lot more, and they're using us with the IDEs and stuff. So I think our margin on the API is like 18%, but we're going to go even lower soon, maybe 5-10%, something like that.
So what does an API user look like? Are they using something like Goose on the front end and they're connecting it? And like, how are they using that product?
So we offer an API key.
Okay.
When you go to PPQ, you get a PPQ API key. Our API key is what's considered OpenAI compatible, which means you can plug our API key in literally dozens, hundreds now of third-party tools. And so yes, Goose, Klein, Rue, the tons and tons and tons, Zed.
So they're just using a different front end with your API, basically.
Yeah, they're using. I would say yes. They're using a different front end, but most of the time it's an IDE, an integrated development environment. So it's like they're looking at code. They're making calls. They're making many calls in succession as it reads their code files and stuff like that. Yeah.
Got it. So, I mean, you said this in the beginning, and I want to pull back to it. I mean, the biggest friction, presumably, with your product right now and the death of subscription models is like people actually using Bitcoin to make payments. Obviously, someone like me, I go to the website, I want to test it out. It's like I have like 15 different Bitcoin wallets I could pull up to pay it. But like the average person that doesn't have Bitcoin, maybe that's not the case. Maybe they get hit with some friction there. You mentioned that Lightning specifically, you're basically giving a 5% discount to people if they pay with Lightning. You'd rather than pay with Lightning. Obviously, I mean, our listeners, I think, would agree with me that Lightning is like the single best payment method for this type of thing. First of all, we get great privacy, but just from the UX point of view, it's just like point, click, go. You have a bit refill background, but you also have a useful tulips background. I mean, that's what I knew you from. Freaks, if you didn't put 2 and 2 together, this is Matt Ahlborg from Useful Tulips, the OG P2P trading dashboard that was like tracking. I think does it still exist?
No, it's not.
Not
it's
updated
not anymore. I think the website's still.
It was tracking all the P2P sales data from like all the different countries in the world. Had great charts and whatnot. But you also have this bit refill background. And I've had Sergey on the show before. And I also, have become relatively close with him. And one of the most fascinating things about him and his relationship with Bitrefill is the payment breakdown. So I'm kind of curious, like, what do you see payment-wise in terms of Bitcoin on chain, Lightning, the other cryptocurrencies you support? Like, how does that look in practice?
Yeah, so Lightning's number one. It's just over majority. Number two, Let's see if you can make a guess on our number 2.
Is it Tether?
Nope.
Oh, is it Monero?
Monero. Yeah. So number 2 is
Before
Monero.
on-chain Bitcoin.
Yes. On-chain Bitcoin's pretty small.
Interesting. Because if they already have on-chain Bitcoin, they'll probably just pay you in Lightning, I guess.
Yeah. Also, our on-chain Bitcoin has been kind of like finicky, so it's hard to give like statistical significance sometimes because like our payment methods were not always 100% up.
Okay.
Same goes with our stable coins. Like we had a really shitty stablecoin payment processor with a lot of errors. So like the tether is probably a little lower than it should be.
Got it.
But coming from Bitrefill, I know exactly the payment popularity over there. And that's why I chose to add the payment methods I did on PPQ, because I'm already very familiar with what like the crypto payment landscape looks like. That's why I know that actually Litecoin is actually pretty important payment coin to add. I think
Do you
Litecoin,
see a lot of Litecoin payments?
it's lower than I thought it would be, but I think it's still around like 12, 15%, something like that.
Interesting. Way
On
higher than I would
Bitrefill,
expect.
on Bitrefill, it's pretty high. Like still not insanely high, but yeah, 15% plus, something like that. Yeah, there's a crazy thing with like the older the coin and the more the older the coin, the more exchanges that it's listed on, the more wallets that support it. These coins gain massive network effects as well, even if they're just a carbon copy of what Bitcoin is. And it is, I think it's very fascinating how Litecoin has kind of hung in there without really any innovation or nobody's ever been cheerleading Litecoin to a large degree. It's just kind of like this zombie project of sorts that just keeps kicking because it's been around so long. And they have actually improved Litecoin. They have like MWeb, it's like Mimblewimble something or other. It's a privacy tech. They recently added the Litecoin. I don't know if it's good or not, but yeah, I don't hate on the Litecoiners as much as I do some others, because I do think they have a lot of shared ideals with, and they a lot of them come from back in the day when the early days of 2013, 2014 when we were all learning about Bitcoin together and that type of thing. So
Is the original shitcoin. So I'm looking here, and so I see you offer Lightning, Bitcoin, Monero, Liquid Bitcoin,
yeah,
USDC, and USDT, and you also offer debit credit card. Do a lot of people do debit credit card?
It's pretty low, but not nothing. And I think it's one of those that could really pop off if we get like the right tweet from the right person or the right, I don't know, because most people in the West have credit cards. And as you said,
it's the standard.
It's hard to find people with a Lightning wallet around, aside from us Bitcoiners.
So do you have a lot of fraud that you have to deal with? Because this is kind of a classic chargeback horror story, right? Like
that is interesting. As I said, the credit card payments are not that high, but we have had several instances where Stripe will send me an email and say like, "Hey, this payment that happened a month ago, we might have to like take your money back." And it's like, it just proves to me like that this is, it's
right.
It's bullshit, like how they can just steal your money back after an entire month. And it just kind of adds fuel to the fire that crypto and Bitcoin Lightning are the way to go in terms of accepting payments, because I've never had a single chargeback on Lightning.
Yeah,
so.
It's impossible. I mean, it's a classic chargeback business risk for this particular use case, because you're providing compute. Like it's gone. Like you've already provided it. You can't claw back the goods. You can't wait to see if there's a chargeback or not.
It's weird though, because the few times that it's happened, I'll go and I'll look at the user or the credit ID that loaded, and I don't think any of the times had they ever spent their entire balance. So I don't know what's going on there, but
I mean, maybe you haven't actually gotten hit with a fraud wave yet. You're just getting users that had regret for signing up for the service and just like issue
Or
a
there was
chargeback.
just some machine learning red flag that was a
Right.
false positive or something. Yeah.
I mean, that could become a major problem for you if you actually get scale on the credit card side.
Yeah, it
But
could.
I understand. It's a trade-off.
On the day that that happens, I'll be happy to tweet about it because this is I think chargebacks are a huge problem. Like, I mean, I guess they have some advantages and there are reasons they added them, but I think if you went back to the 1970s when they initiated this thing, like I think Visa, MasterCard, they had no idea the cost that chargebacks were going to introduce into their systems. Especially in the age of the internet where fucking fraud is everywhere. I think they would really rethink the fact that, they would make payments final. And that's why I think a lot of the crypto payments happening that are instantly settled, it's a huge advantage. And I think that's going to be in the same way that I'm clawing away at subscriptions. I think crypto is clawing away at Visa, MasterCard because chargebacks are like a really big thorn in their side.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks to the merchant. I just think it's a better payment experience from the user point of view, just from like a UX point of view.
Yeah. Even when you're a user and you make a credit card payment and it goes through and both you and the business are happy, there's still a fee involved that reflects the amount of fraud that's happening across the network. Like when that 3% that we all hear about, a big chunk of that 3% is because of all this fraud mitigation that these companies have to put up with. So
yeah, they're effectively socializing. They're socializing the cost. They're spreading it out. They're doing a risk reward adjustment to make profit. I see Gary Krause in the comments, Ride or Die Freak, asking about eCash. What are your thoughts on that front? I assume he's talking about using eCash actually internally to try and add additional privacy to the system.
Yeah, so I'm not an eCash expert, but I've been learning a bit more. A lot of the eCash aficionados have come to me and asked for me to add this. There is Routster out there, which I'm sure some users are also familiar with, which uses the eCash tokens. So what you get when you add eCash, as far as I understand, is it basically makes it so that PPQ. So right now, when a user deposits $10, they get a credit ID associated with them. So I can actually link, if I wanted to, I could link all of the users' queries together, and I could say like,
we're trusting you.
Yeah, and I could say this person who ran 5 queries on Tuesday and then 4 queries on Wednesday and whatever. But with eCash, it becomes it becomes anonymized, basically, where you can't even tell, who's even among your credit IDs, which credit ID is making that query. So there is a privacy gain by adding that. The problem with eCash is the same problem as Lightning, only it's magnified by 10x. Is that like not many people hold eCash to pay with it, right? And so, like, I even tried to do Routster myself, and I was like, okay, I want to go to Routster. I want to like try this thing out. Oh, I don't have eCash tokens. Where the hell do I get eCash tokens?
No, but I think the point is for you to replace credits internally with eCash. So like I pay with Lightning or credit card or Monero or whatever, and then you give me PPQ eCash tokens, right? That you manage.
I'm issuing them to the user. Yeah, that is another way to do it as well.
And then that way, then I would have the bearer tokens. I would have the eCash bearer tokens, right? And then it disconnects me to a degree. It reduces trust in you.
Yes, that is true.
The trust model, yeah.
Yeah, that now that I think about it, that is there is a there's different ways you could use eCash, and the better way is, you don't have users bringing you eCash tokens.
Yeah, don't do that.
Giving them eCash tokens when they make a Lightning deposit.
And that improves, so the trade-off there is additional complexity on your side, particularly when you first set it up, because you say you're not an eCash expert. Well, there's about 10. So there's like not that many. I will say most of them are, vibe coding aficionados. So like, I'm sure a bunch of them would be willing to help out. Like specifically their leader, Callie.
They are willing. It's had Calais reach out to me a couple of times, and so yes, it is something that I would look into, and it's just a matter of like, is it going to be next month or maybe 2-3 months from now? I don't know.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the argument isn't really, this isn't a, Bitcoiners pushing for perfect kind of thing. I think long term, you're probably in a better position if you don't have the liability of having so much information on users, right? Like if PPQ is successful at scale and you can actually connect the dots on users, you're going to get tons of requests, and you'll have tons of information liability, which we've seen with every VPN provider. Like I can't imagine, that's not a business I would ever want to be in, is like the hosted VPN provider business. And so if you can reduce some of that data liability, data exposure, it's probably a big win for you long term if you see scale.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. I will definitely think about that. I don't know if the answer, though, if a regulator comes to you and you say like, sorry, I don't have the information that you're looking for. Like, I think most of the time their knee-jerk reaction is like, well, since you don't have it at all, then we're shutting you down.
Well, no, I don't think they could shut you down. I think they could try and pass additional regulations. It adds some level of friction. We see this with stuff like Signal, right? Where Signal does respond to government requests. Just the data they hand over is like basically nothing. They hand over a phone number. They can hand over an IP addresses that connect to their servers. But that's basically it. They don't have metadata and they don't have the message contents.
Yeah.
And so what happens is for the high value targets, governments just break into their phone or their computer and then get the signal messages that way, which they could do for this too. And so presumably it kind of plays out the same way, where they just go that route. They don't give you too much trouble. And if they want to add regulation on top, they can add regulation. The advantage of the eCash model, at least, Callie's become a pretty good friend of mine, is that like even though it adds a level of complexity, it is a use case that he's thought a lot about. And so they do basically have like an SDK, and it's relatively easy to implement.
Yeah.
His dream is like Amazon gift cards being eCash, like their own internal eCash. So you have some level of privacy attached to it.
Yeah. The one last, I do really take point with what you're saying about having too much information and that becoming a liability. The one last pushback I'll make is that it's actually nice to have some level of metadata on users, because to know what countries my users are coming from helps me in terms of marketing and business development. To know what, if a user comes, like one question I have now is like, how much value is adding all these media models giving me? Media models like image generation, like if I can pull a new user in because they can do some cool image model, but then I can transition them to using me on a daily basis for text queries or whatever, then it's worth it to add more image and video models, right? So if I can actually see that about a particular credit ID where they come in, they make a couple image queries, and then I can see that they transition, that helps me from a business development standpoint. I get it though, it's not perfectly private. And so, there's a gray area between like, but it's
trade-offs. It's trade-offs all the way down.
Yeah.
It's hard to build a product with
knowing nothing about your user.
I've seen that firsthand, particularly on the 1031 side and some of the businesses we've invested in. It makes it really difficult. You're just throwing estimates around.
And I don't even, in most cases, I don't even get the email address of my users. So like, I can't email them and say like, hey, why did you leave our platform? Like, what did we do badly? Like, I have this little customer chat widget that is actually really awesome, because that is my primary way that I'm talking to customers. But aside from that, like, I don't even have emails most of the time. And so it's really hard to if I didn't have that customer chat thing, there's literally hundreds of bugs that users have reported to me using that, and it shows that like you have to have some level of connection with your users. Yeah, so it's really important.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, you could just make it optional if you wanted to. You could
That's
give
kind
people
of
you could give people a discount too if they stay in the less private non-eCash model. No matter what, you still have the IP addresses you still get some data, right? Like it doesn't.
honestly, I haven't thought about exactly what data I would be losing that hard, but that was a question that I posed to
Well, the
Calais.
big thing you would lose is user behavior data, which is very helpful in product iteration. The other thing is you can iterate the product without it being, and then you could turn on the privacy preserving. And maybe 3 months is too soon. Maybe it's 18 months, 24 months. When you have a general idea of what the average user flow looks like, you're not losing as much. You've already iterated on the product more.
Yeah, there's always iteration to do though, but I mean, I hear you. Yeah.
I just is probably my single biggest concern with the AI acceleration is the disadvantage that privacy for all of digital humanity, or for all of our lives, we're probably relatively similar in age. If you wanted to have privacy in the digital age and have freedom in the digital age, you were at a disadvantage. And one of the cool things about Bitcoin, to be honest, is that it actually flips the script on that. Someone who uses Bitcoin privately and in a freedom-oriented way actually has a lot of advantages over someone who just owns the ETF or owns MSTR or something like that. So it's like a natural advantage that you have actually putting in the work and doing it. But on the AI side, it really accelerates it. It's like if I'm competing with someone in the job market and they have access to ChatGPT and they're using it in the least private way possible and feeding in all of their private information into it, that model and that agent is going to become so much more powerful to them. That's going to give them almost superpowers compared to the guy who's using the freedom-focused one. And it becomes this massive data collection hellhole. Like it's the first real model that incentivizes data collection on the internet was the ad sales, right? It was like if you could track someone and you could sell their data to advertisers, you could monetize them better. It was like your data cattle, like monetize the cattle as much as possible. This is the second major model. This is like the second time in digital human history where corporations have like a huge incentive to track people and collect as much data as possible, and then train their models off of it, make them better, do all this other stuff. So it's just something I think about a lot. I'm not pretending like there's a perfect way to do it, but
I mean, I think about it a lot too, and I haven't seen reasons yet to be super optimistic about it, because which sucks. I think maybe it is the fact that we did have DeepSeek, which came along, and it was a very good model. And so if we do continue to see these open source models that are approaching the capability of the proprietary models, then maybe there is some hope in there. Yeah, I think maybe I'm just really theorizing here, but like there could be major incidents coming up in the future where we have all sorts of data leaks nowadays, right? But I mean, a lot of the time, I've never been impacted by a data leak myself. I'm sure
you were in the TransUnion social security number thing where every adult was.
I'm sure I was, but I guess my point is I never felt the impact of it. Like my identity was never stolen. Like I know it's common, but what I'm trying to say is maybe there will be an incident where a large number of people are substantially impacted. And then that's the moment that governments actually step in and enforce privacy or start to enforce privacy. But maybe I'm just being really crazy and that's never going to happen. I don't know, but I'm just trying to think about how it could come about. What are the possible inflection points?
I mean, I'll say the bull case in my mind is that the data leaks are going to get worse and worse. But rather than government stepping in, even though they should, I think it's a national security issue. But rather than government stepping in, I think, you get a handful of new users that seek out the better methods. Now the question is, and you don't get most of them, right? Like we just saw what the main DNA provider, like they got like sold to like the Chinese. They got they got everyone's DNA that provided it to 21andMe. And like most people didn't bat an eye, but some people did, and some people were like, "Holy shit! I just doxed my entire genealogical branch." But then at that point, to have tools available to them so that they're not at a huge disadvantage, but they can still focus on the privacy freedom way, I think is key, because most of the time they're at a disadvantage. Now, I want to be clear here. I'm not trying to denigrate PPQ. I think actually PPQ right now is one of the best tools someone in a freedom privacy focused way can use. And even without eCash, like I can log in with a VPN. And when I say log in, no login information whatsoever, just pay with Lightning. I can do a set of prompts and then I can just close that session and then do a new session from a different VPN later. And then I have similar privacy guarantees as if you were using eCash on your side. So like it is the best way for me to use top end models in a privacy focused way if the user knows what they're doing. So thank you for that. I'm like, I want to be clear here that I'm not like,
yeah, sure. Yeah, I appreciate that. And
putting
yeah,
you in the hot seat.
We're trying to take the practical approach here. And I know that it's certainly not perfect, but
it's awesome. Quite frankly, it's awesome. So thank you.
Yeah, most people are appreciative, and that's what keeps us going for sure.
And I will say on the image generation side, you said like user behavior does image generation bring you in. There's no other way for me to use like the top end image generation stuff.
Yeah, exactly. There's
without your service.
Yeah.
And I don't use them for business stuff. I just use them because like I want to create like shit posts or memes or whatever.
Or like, troll family members and friends and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it took me, like, you were the first time I ever got to use a real image generation model. Because I refused to, I never signed, I'm probably there's plenty of people that haven't, but I've never signed up for ChatGPT or any of the major image generation proprietary models. What else? I'm just kind of curious on your opinion on like the current state of Bitcoin. I mean, you were like the P2P guy. You were like the P2P freedom money guy. And you pivoted to AI. And then meanwhile, it's like paper Bitcoin summer. We got ETFs and MSTR and stuff. How are you thinking? But we're also at all-time highs. More people using freedom money than ever before. How do you think about where we're currently at in Bitcoin?
Yeah, I have a big mess of thoughts. On the one hand, I think I underestimated the amount that the corporatization of Bitcoin would like help its price. I always thought that it would be the kind of medium of exchange, everybody kind of slowly grassroots adopting it type thing, which hasn't popped off yet. But I'm still in that corner, obviously, because I'm building PPQ. It's hugely dependent on the success of Bitcoin as a medium of exchange. I don't know. Like I said, it's a big mess of thoughts about Bitcoin. I think that a lot of the P2P stuff went to stablecoins. And I think that like this gigantic plurality of all of these cryptos, they accomplish for a lot of users the goal of the user, and it doesn't necessarily require Bitcoin a lot of the time. So when a user wants to do, they're living in a developing country and they want to do a cross-border transfer, Bitcoin is one option among literally thousands. And stablecoin is probably the way that they're going to do it.
Specifically Tether.
Yeah, Tether, or even there's a bunch, but Yeah. So in the way I pictured this journey on Bitcoin going is I always thought that like Bitcoin is kind of built for the financial oppression nuclear winter is kind of what I like to I always thought the governments were going to crack down hard and we would need this very decentralized network that survived hard times, and we would need this Lightning network, which is very difficult to build out and very hard for users to learn how to use. And there's so many technical trade-offs that are happening, or technical. It's very conservative, and because it wants to guarantee that sovereignty. But the end result is like governments, I guess they tried to crack down on in some degree, but like they were never really that successful. And so what we're left with is like there's literally thousands of shit coins out there. There's all these stable coins that were never cracked down upon, and now stable coins are actually becoming important for government, the U.S. government in particular, because it's extending the timeline of the dollar. So yeah, I don't know. Bitcoin has gone in directions that I guess in some ways I was right about, but other ways I was very wrong about. So yeah, I don't know. A mess of thoughts, like I said.
I mean, the way I think about it is you really, I think it just really comes down to the extremes, right? So like I think in permissible times, right? And you can get around the Tron. Like Tron can get away with just running like 7 servers on corporate cloud servers and send Tether around the world and be like the number one medium of exchange. Like that works. Or you need to have like cockroach money, which is Bitcoin. Like all the stuff in the middle is pretty much useless.
Yeah.
And so it's like Bitcoin is the safe haven. We have it no matter what. When there's no other option, you have Bitcoin. And then the majority of people are going to use Tether, which is, more or less like being indoctrinated as like almost a quasi CBDC, but like the best possible version of a CBDC because it's corporate run by Bitcoiners that try and push back against seizing funds and whatnot, but still completely transparent and tied to the dollar. And everything in the middle is just like caught in no man's land.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the reality we're in right now. And then 99% of new users that actually want Bitcoin price exposure are buying MSTR or
Do you think
IBIT.
it's 99, or you think it's really that high?
I think it's quite high. I mean, in terms of dollar amount, not in terms of users.
Yeah.
Like in terms of actual volumes, probably it's, over 98%. Maybe I'm being provocative, but it's probably over 98%. But in terms of users, in terms of number of users, maybe we still have them beat because we have like the developing world and global permissionless markets. But a lot of them are probably coming in with smaller sums, right? If someone's going to allocate $100 million into Bitcoin, probably coming into IBIT.
Yeah. I don't know. I think you said a lot of those things well, but yeah, who knows where we're at.
And then my bull case is I think we have more people using Bitcoin as freedom money than ever before. Like the number of people that are making self-custody Lightning payments higher than it's ever been. And the cool part is it's hard for us to calculate what that number is. The number of people self-custodying Bitcoin higher than it's ever been. Percentage-wise, lower than it's been in the past.
Yeah.
But in terms of absolute numbers, that number goes up.
It's true. And I think that's the fact that people say like, well, we don't know how many Lightning transactions are happening. That's a little bit of I think people are hoping that there's more than there are.
There probably aren't. Yeah.
But as I was the guy at BitRefill, and BitRefill is actually an excellent metric on because we accept all these cryptos and so we can actually see like how many users are actually bringing us Lightning payments. And the answer is exactly what you said. It's in absolute numbers, it's never been higher, but in proportional numbers, it's actually like being beat out by a lot of other cryptos. So that's kind of a good news and bad news situation. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think Lightning is still slowly but steadily improving, getting better, gaining users. I don't know. Is it enough to kind of keep up with a lot of the other stuff that's happening? I don't know. And again, it goes back to the question of like, is this other stuff going to be ever cracked down upon, like the Tether on Tron type thing? I don't know. Probably not, though. I would say less likely than it was 3 years ago.
Well, I mean, I think the cool thing about the vision of Bitcoin as like Bitcoin on chain being like a foundational protocol layer that itself is cockroach type of trade-off model, like trying to survive a nuclear winter, is key, because then you can build stuff on top of it. And Lightning itself took a certain set of trade-offs to be censorship resistant and robust. And we just really haven't seen, besides Liquid, which kind of just never found product market fit, we've never seen like a more centralized trust model. And now there's some things being experimented on with like Arc and Spark that are coincidentally named the same, that rhyme with each other, or Cashew even, right? Like, oh, how do we make more privacy preserving custodians? And so then all of a sudden we could see things go down the more centralized. This like maybe there's more usage on the centralized stuff. But at the end of the day, if shit hits the fan, we can pull back to like the actual cockroach stuff. Maybe that's the bull case. I don't know. I also like, I'm glad we're not getting cracked down on as much as I assumed. Like I thought Bitcoin was going to be straight up illegal in America in like 2017. So I still think it's the best timeline, and we'll kind of see how it all plays out.
My bull case is like, I think it's Bitcoin is its monetary properties. It's not the medium of exchange stuff that is really popping off. It's the fact that it is competing as this beautiful like finite supply money on a global stage where everything else is just infinite printing. That's something that's the angle that I never really gave enough weight to, but I think it's totally starting to play out now and I think, the really great thing about, one of the really great things about Bitcoin also is that it makes you start to ask questions about the fiat system and how it runs, because until Bitcoin came along, nobody really ever asked questions on like, okay, so you're just making money out of thin air. Like, what are the rules for that? Like, do we even know how much money you're printing? It says here you're printing this much, but then you have all these like classified budgets that are unaccounted for. So you're probably printing a lot more than you say you're printing. And like the holes just start getting poked into their presentation of what fiat is. And I think they're absolutely starting to lose the argument on like, before they could kind of just sit back and say like, yeah, we have this fiat thing and we have all these like balancing mechanisms for it, and it's too complicated for you to understand, so just don't worry about it. But now, because people are learning about finite money and the advantages of it, they're starting to ask questions about all these like bullshit tricks that the fiat system makes, and I think they're losing those arguments a lot. I love it when like the European Central Bank like post something on Twitter nowadays. It's like 98% angry Bitcoiners, like just telling them like all of the lies that they're saying. And I think they're losing the narrative war, the story war. Yeah.
I mean, even the term fiat, like the term fiat was popularized by Bitcoiners. Like that was not a term that was like in normal discourse and has become such recently. Or like the last few years, mostly because of the normalization from Bitcoiners. I mean, and just to bring it back, by the way, when I said like, we don't know exactly how many people are making Bitcoin transactions or whatever, I think it's on the lower end. Like my question, here's a question, just spitballing. No one's going to hold you to it. And also no one can ever prove that you were wrong. How many Bitcoiners do you think exist in the world that own more than a half a Bitcoin in self-custody? So more than, I used to do this with a Bitcoin, but now we're at 120K. So I'll do a half a Bitcoin, $60,000 in self-custody worth of Bitcoin. How many Bitcoiners do you think exist?
Well, it can't be over 42 million, right? So because that would be more than
Right.
So I would say, yeah, I would say maybe 5 million.
I think it's less than that. So if
Yeah.
you ask,
It probably is. Yeah.
if you open PPQ and ask Grok 3, how many own more than one Bitcoin? It comes up to 100 to 250,000, and it gives you like all its reasoning or whatever.
Okay. It's possible. Yeah.
I think
But
it's less than 1 million.
what is the point that you're driving at here?
My point is first of all, it's cool that we have no idea, just making a guess.
Yeah.
But my second point is when Saylor says like there's 100 million Bitcoiners, it's like it's just bullshit. Like we're still very small. Like it's mostly a small vocal minority.
Yeah.
It's like animals, like when you're like watching like National Geographic or something, and they show an animal like puff themselves up and look like a big bad beast. Like we're a small town. We're not even a city. Like a city of 200,000 people isn't a city. It's a large town.
Yeah.
Of actual Bitcoiners of size.
I think this was a tweet that Marty put out a few years ago that really resonated with me. It said something about how 8% of colonials actually participated in the Revolutionary War.
Yeah.
So the vocal minorities really do change history. So,
I agree. Yeah. That's what we're doing. But I think it's important for people to ground themselves and realize, put it into perspective a little bit.
Yeah.
Anyway, Matt, this was a great chat. I'd love to have you on, in 6 to 8 months and see where you're at and get some updates on AI. And I mean, it's obviously a trend that I think everyone needs to keep an eye on. It'd be great to have you back. Yeah. Do you have any final thoughts for the audience before we wrap?
Don't have any final thoughts, but thanks for listening. And you can go to our Nostr NPub, and it's probably posted somewhere around here. Ask any questions you want. We are very much building in the open as much as possible, and user feedback and suggestions is what drives the direction that we're going. So
I love it. Their website is ppq.ai. I'm going to put links in the show notes to their Nostr account and all the other relevant information. So just check the show notes if you want to connect with Matt and the main account. Freaks, I see some comments in the YouTube chat. The Nostr stream was down today. Kieran, who runs Zapstream, self-hosts everything, and his router's getting DDoSed. I'm aware that it feels like Nostr isn't iterating quick enough. I still think it's amazing that it's running and that it works to the extent that it does. We'll make those things better, but until then, we'll always be streaming no matter what. I'll make a way to get the content to you guys, even if we have to use YouTube, even if we have to use Twitch. It is what it is. Next week, I got 2 shows lined up. One on Monday, we're going to be talking about Bitcoin with Ben Kaufman, great Bitcoin developer that works with Keeper Wallet right now. He used to work with Spectre Wallet. And then on Friday with Ahlborg, who's mission focused on Nostr with Coracle and Flotilla. I'll keep you guys posted on Nostr with the actual schedule there. Primal.net/Odell. Thank you all the freaks that continue to support the show. Thank you guys who joined us in the live chat, even though we weren't in our typical place, even though we weren't on the Nostr live chat. Thank you for joining. You guys make the show unique. Huge shout out to Matt. Check out his awesome project. Give him feedback. It's very helpful at this point in their development. Matt, thank you for joining.
Thank you so much for having me. Great conversation.
Love it. Open